The story begins with a British ecologist, Adam Hitchens, moving to Ireland with his wife Claire, their baby Finn, and their dog Iggy. Their new home is near a forest that is about to be cut down, and Adam wants to collect material for his research before that happens. Therefore, while Claire begins repairs on the new house, he goes to explore the forest with the baby and the dog. Upon seeing a dark slime on a tree trunk, he starts scraping the sample and then realizes that Iggy is wandering too far away. The dog does not obey when he calls it back, so Adam decides to follow him and ends up dropping Finn's pacifier in a stream. When he reaches Iggy, the dog is barking around what appears to be an abandoned structure in the middle of the forest. The walls have been erected, but some parts lack a roof, and the interior is filled with debris. The grass is already growing through the planks scattered on the floor, suggesting that the construction was interrupted a long time ago, and there is a dead animal in one corner, lying against the wall in an abnormal way. Carefully approaching, Adam puts on gloves and takes a magnifying glass to examine the carcass. On the animal's back is a long wound that is filled with that same slimy substance. Meanwhile, a man named Colm Donnelly arrives at the Hitchens house with his son. Claire lets out an unhappy sigh upon recognizing the car, as this is not their first visit, and she knows what is coming. Colm disapproves of her husband's activities in the forest, and says that it is an invasion of property, as well as being very dangerous for the ecologist and his family. Anxious to get rid of him, Claire promises to convince Adam to visit him so they can have a serious talk, but Colm only leaves after insisting that it happens today. Finally free from the hassle, Claire enters the house and is startled to see that her husband has already returned, coming in through the back. He is very excited about today's collection and barely pays attention to her, but he says he will try to appease the surly neighbor as soon as he can. Later, he observes the samples under the microscope and has an intrigued look upon seeing what appears to be one cell attacking another. The second cell takes on characteristics similar to the first after the attack, as if it has been contaminated. Claire is putting the baby to sleep when the black slime begins to drip down from above, falling directly onto the baby's blanket. She informs her husband that the ceiling is leaking and asks him to go up to the attic to check the situation. Adam quickly examines the place and gets distracted by a collection of records, not noticing the corner of the wall from where the black slime is growing like hair. He tells Claire that everything is fine up there and that the leak is probably just humidity. Still excited about his work, he shows her an image of the parasitic fungus called cordyceps, explaining that it acts like a Trojan horse. Capable of penetrating an ant's skull, it proceeds to control the victim and gains access to the entire colony, spreading its spores. Claire finds this talk disgusting, but Adam enjoys talking about fungi so much that he ends up getting excited in a different way. She also begins to get into the mood, but their romance is interrupted by Finn's crying through the baby monitor. Claire is heading to him when she hears a sudden noise of glass breaking, simultaneously as the crying grows louder and turns into a scream. She rushes up the stairs and is startled by the slamming door, but manages to open it and picks up the baby. Adam sees the lamp knocked over in one corner and the broken window pane, concluding that something was thrown through the window. He sees no one outside, but deduces that it must have been retaliation from Colm because Adam did not show up for their scheduled meeting. The police arrive a few minutes later and do not offer much help, saying it must have just been some confused type of bird. Trying to make him take the situation more seriously, Claire explains that her family was not very well received in the neighborhood and, to her surprise, he also does not seem happy about their presence. He says that the locals are full of superstitions and, according to one of them, the forest belongs to the Hallow, which is a group of mythical beings like fairies and goblins. Adam rolls his eyes upon hearing this, doubtful of the policeman's intelligence, but he assures that he does not believe in such things. Even so, the tension concerning the new neighbors is enough to disturb the overall peace, as the residents become restless when someone starts messing with what they should not. The officer also mentions Colm Donnelly, telling that he had a small daughter named Cora. One day she got lost in the woods and never returned home. To this day, Colm insists that the girl was taken by the beings of the forest. After the police leave, Adam decides to gather evidence against Colm because he does not believe in that version of the bird. He is in the backyard taking pictures of the window when he hears something moving among the bushes. Intrigued, he points the camera at the shrubbery right in front of him and clicks the flash, illuminating a strange shape with a pair of glowing eyes. The thing appears for only a fraction of a second and is barely visible, so Adam remains thinking it was just his imagination. He becomes more worried about Iggy's behavior, who is growling and barking toward the shed. When Adam gets closer, he hears a possibly human whimper coming from inside, and decides to take a look, but only finds the shed full of junk. After he leaves, the door opens again without him noticing, and we hear a soft cry from a human baby. The next day, Adam promises his wife that he will talk to Colum after fixing the window. Then, Claire stays home with Iggy while he goes to town with Finn. While cleaning the baby's room, Claire discovers that the black slime has concentrated on one of the sheets, forming a horrifying fungal-looking thing. Unbeknownst to her, Iggy is staring at the bushes again, and then ventures into the woods. Meanwhile, Adam arrives in town under curious looks and brings the window to the glazier Thomas. He shows that he knows what Adam does for a living and starts talking about supernatural creatures without any ceremony. According to Thomas, the so-called bird is a manifestation of the Hallow, invading Adam's home just like it invaded the forest. He agrees to fix the window, but warns that it will not help much without the metal part. At the same time, Colum and his son make a surprise visit to Claire, who is greatly startled to see that man suddenly inside her house. Very irritated, he accuses her of not heeding his warnings and claims he is not crazy, contrary to what she thinks. Claire nearly starts crying when he puts his hand in his pocket, but he only wants to give her an old book. He leaves it on the table without saying anything else and then departs. On the way back home, Adam bends down to pick up a toy that has fallen, taking his eyes off the road for a moment. This causes him to almost run over Colum, who is returning to the farm, but fortunately, he stops in time, and the two exchange threatening glances. Adam keeps driving, and the next stretch goes through the forest. It is then that the music begins to malfunction, and the tape gets stuck in the player. The dashboard also seems to go haywire, and the car starts swerving from side to side, not obeying the steering wheel, until Adam slams on the brakes. The newly repaired window breaks again with the jolt, and now the car won't start. Upon opening the hood, Adam sees that it is full of slime and goes to fetch a tool from the back, but something pushes him and slams the lid shut. It is nighttime when he wakes up, trapped in the trunk and hearing the baby's cries, who is alone in the back seat. Something starts banging on the car, attacking the vehicle from all sides with violent shakes. We see shadows of something huge passing quickly by the windows, and the car doors slam as if trying to get in. In panic, Adam tears a hole in the seat cover and grabs the baby, then exits the car with a flashlight. The thing that attacked them seems to have gone away, but the car is covered in claw marks. Hearing Iggy's barks, Adam follows the sound until he reaches home and tells Claire to call the police, still convinced that Colum is behind all this. She is startled to see him carrying the rifle, but he says it is just a precaution. When they reach upstairs, the lights suddenly go out, and several windows begin to shatter simultaneously. Adam leaves his wife with the baby in the bedroom, instructing her to lock the door, and descends with the rifle. Flashes of light are coming from one of the rooms, and he slowly opens the door. Something inside emits a piercing screech, and Adam fires, causing despair for Claire upstairs. However, he soon realizes that there is no one inside. The sound was the door creaking open, and the flashes are coming from his own camera. Despite this, it is evident that the house has been invaded, as everything is turned upside down. Adam has a fit of rage, cursing Colum's stupidity and mocking the ridiculous book he lent. Claire convinces him that, right or wrong, it is safer to leave there for now. After quickly tidying up, they look for Iggy, and Adam finds him in the shed. The dog has something in his mouth and is covered in blood, and one of his eyes is very red. Blaming Colum for that too, Adam puts a collar on him and takes the family to where he left the car. However, as soon as they arrive there, Iggy becomes agitated and breaks free, running away. The couple hears his barks turning into whimpers of pain, along with the horrible sound of something being ripped apart. Decided to flee, they try to fix the engine, which at this point is already covered in a thick layer of sticky filaments. It is then that Claire looks back and becomes petrified upon seeing several creatures crawling out of the woods and approaching them very quickly. Startled, she presses down harder on the accelerator, and the car starts up, but then Adam closes the hood, and she sees behind him a row of monstrous beings. Her screams alert her husband, who quickly returns inside, and the two try to reach the highway. However, the car is chased by the creatures, who throw a lot of slime on it and break the back windows. Suddenly, what seems to be a zombie girl appears in front of them, and Claire loses control of the steering wheel, crashing the car down a slope. With no choice, they run back to the house and catch their breath while processing the information that the Hallow truly exists. When Adam peeks through the keyhole, wanting to make sure they were not followed, something suddenly strikes his eye. The door begins to shake violently, and a thread of slime enters through the keyhole. Once the noise ceases, Adam approaches with the flashlight and opens the door without warning, illuminating the horrendous creature. Seeing that thing shrink back screaming, he realizes that this species does not like light and decides to turn on the generator. For that, he will have to risk going outside. So first, he leaves Claire and Finn in the attic, asking her to keep the trapdoor well shut. He goes to the shed and discovers that the slime has also spread all over inside, even on the circuit box. Meanwhile, Claire sees moisture appearing in the attic with supernatural speed, and the wood begins to give way. She tries to warn her husband, but the range of the baby monitor is too short, and he only hears static. Prepared to defend her child, she holds the trapdoor tightly when a sticky arm breaks through the wood. The claw feels around in the air, searching for her face, while other intruders arrive on the roof, making dozens of holes in the shingles. In the shed, Adam is overcome by intense pain and begins suffering from delirium, but he fights to compose himself. The tip of the monster's claw is nearly reaching Claire's eye when he finally manages to turn on the generator. As soon as the lights come on, all the creatures immediately disappear, leaving Claire at peace again. Upon touching an iron bar, Adam injures his hand and sees that the slime is oozing out of his palm. Returning home, he realizes that the light also harms him greatly and becomes desperate upon seeing his eye in the mirror, as it is evident that he is contaminated in some way. Without saying anything to his wife, he improvises an eye patch and asks for her help to install the iron beams on the windows. Claire asks how he can be so sure this will work, and finds it strange that he himself does not touch the beams at any point. A little later, she is startled to see one of the monsters appearing from the other side of the glass, but notices that it really cannot get through. Explaining that the generator will not hold much longer, Adam puts the baby inside a cabinet and leaves the baby monitor with him. Claire does not like the idea much, but agrees that it may be safer. Adam begins reading the book about the Hallow and finds a chapter about the phenomenon of the fake child. At the same time, Claire is becoming uneasy about not seeing the baby, in addition to becoming increasingly suspicious of her husband. She then tries to check the cabinet quietly, but soon lets out a scream of horror as she opens the door just in time to see a monster abducting her child. The creature disappears into the walls corroded by the slime, and the couple panics, following Finn's cries through the house. Adam manages to find the kidnapper with the baby in the attic, but as he is about to take his son back, another monster's claw comes through the roof and scratches his face. Stumbling, he falls through the trapdoor and crashes to the floor as the creature takes Finn away. Claire rushes down and chases the monster through the forest, trying to navigate by the baby monitor. Adam regains his senses and tends to his injured leg, battling the infection that continues trying to take over him. Upon seeing Finn's blanket floating in a lake, Claire dives in right after and emerges with the baby in her arms. The creatures are still hiding in the foliage around, but none try to stop her. Arriving home, she hesitates a little when her husband reaches out, but then decides to trust him, handing over the baby. She regrets that decision soon after, as Adam begins to say that this is not her child. She recalls the story of the ants and tells her husband that the fungus is affecting his mind, but he insists that it is a false child. Shoving Claire away, he begins to threaten the baby and presses a nail against his forehead. Adam really sees the child transforming, but when Claire strikes him on the back and grabs the baby, his face is completely normal. She runs to the shed and locks herself inside, with her husband still on her tail. Speaking to her through the door, he swears that this baby is evil and says that the creatures would not have returned the real Finn so easily. His words even make some sense, but his voice is changing rapidly, and Claire also sees through the cracks the transformations occurring in his face. When he manages to break into the shed, she shines the light on him and protects herself with a long scythe, knowing that he is now part of the Hallow. Adam undergoes another wave of painful spasms, and she feels pity upon seeing the fungi growing from within him. However, he soon grabs her leg tightly, and she decides to leave him behind, taking the camera with her. Adam is already at a very advanced stage of transformation when he recovers and goes after his wife with a flaming scythe. In the middle of the forest, he passes by the unfinished structure, where he finds poor Iggy also in full metamorphosis. The creatures start to arrive slowly, but are repelled by the brightness of the fire. After running for a long time, Claire reaches a neighboring house and knocks on the door to ask for shelter, but who opens it is Colum. With a rifle pointed at her, he kicks her out without mercy, fearing that her presence will attract the monsters. Meanwhile, Adam is still in the crumbling construction, using the torch to get past the monsters and reach a little girl who is already completely transformed. He deduces that this is Cora, Colum's daughter, and the baby in her arms is the real Finn. Reaching out to him, she opens her fingers and shows the pacifier that had fallen in the stream. Adam tries to get closer, but Cora snarls angrily at him. Lost in the forest, Claire uses the camera flash to light her way and keep the creatures at bay. Just when she starts seeing several of them lurking at the tops of the trees, the camera begins to beep, indicating low battery. One of the monsters leaps right in front of her, and she soon finds herself surrounded, using flash after flash to repel the enemies, not knowing what to do. Dazed, she steps wrong and falls into a lower area, where it is even easier to be cornered. As the beasts approach, she sees that the camera has turned off completely, and then a familiar voice calls her name. Adam is right next to her, holding a baby and saying that this is the real Finn. She is shocked to see the state of her husband and the wild way he interacts with the other beasts. But she is also deeply disturbed to see that the babies are identical. Adam begs her to make the exchange and then fights each monster that approaches until a claw pierces him through the back. Seeing that there is no time to decide, Claire leaves the baby on the ground and picks up the other one. Adam is still alive when the sun begins to rise, and the first rays hit the baby that was left behind. He watches anxiously and drops a tear upon seeing that he was right, as the false baby is corroded by the light and returns to its true form before turning to dust. Adam takes his last breath as Claire returns home, safe and sound. Sometime later, the forest begins to be cut down, and we see that the logs on the truck are covered in black slime.